It's Sunday, December 13th, 2020. This is the Central Florida Computer Society's Windows Special Interest Group, also known as WinSIG. I'm Hewie Poplock, and I welcome you today. And today we're going to do things a little bit different. I'm going to try to get some discussions going on a couple of topics. And the first one is going to be, and there we go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the desktop as a service, or DaaS. As I said, I'm Hewie Poplock. Ready or not, here comes Windows as a desktop as a service, or a DaaS, for all users in the forthcoming Microsoft Cloud PC offering. The predictors say that by May 2021, which is just a few months away, most of you will be able to run Windows from Microsoft's Azure cloud using Cloud PC. You've long been able to run Windows remotely. Citrix Systems, after all, starting back in 1989, made a multi-billion-dollar business from offering just such services. Microsoft has been moving towards a subscription desktop as a service model for more than 4 years. Recently, Microsoft released Microsoft 365 and Windows Virtual Desktop, or known as WVD. Microsoft Cloud PC, a strategic new offering built on top of Windows Virtual Desktop to deliver desktop as a service. At its core, Cloud PC provides business customers a modern, elastic, cloud-based Windows experience and will allow organizations to stay current in a more simplistic and scalable manner. What's different about Cloud PC from Windows Virtual Desktop, from a user's viewpoint, is that instead of paying for it on an Azure cloud usage basis, you'll subscribe to it at a fixed rate. Microsoft will offer medium, heavy, and advanced subscriptions. Although there's no hint of a light offering, most likely there will be one. The light, or perhaps the beginner package, will come with a single virtual CPU, 4 gigabytes of RAM, and 48 gigabytes of SSD storage. The medium plan comes with 2 virtual CPUs, 4 gigabytes of RAM, and 96 gigabytes of SSD storage. It's designed for general purpose use, optimized for cost and flexibility. With the heavy plan, users get all of the above, but they'll have access to 8 gigabytes of RAM. It's for users with advanced compute needs, optimized for performance and speed. Finally, there's the advanced plan. It includes 8 gigabytes of RAM, 3 virtual CPUs, and an unknown amount of SSD storage. It offers accelerated graphics optimized for scalability and data processing. Since fast graphics is what this release is all about, most likely it will be built on top of Azure GPU workstations, NV version 4 virtual machines, or VMs. So what do you think? Can you see subscribing to Windows on the cloud? Or will you stick to a traditional Windows PC? Before you decide, keep in mind that many of you, if I had asked you 5 years ago if you'd still be using Office on your desktop or Office 365 on the cloud, you would have said on the PC. Today, Office 365 is overwhelmingly more popular than Office 2016, and Office 2019 isn't even on the charts. That points the way to how this should shake out. Cost is guessed at by Windows watchers. They estimate that the prices will be about medium at about $25, heavy at $50, and advanced at $100. What I haven't been able to find out is those that are mentioning prices, whether that's per month or per year. Judging by the cost of the Office 365, or now Microsoft 365, I pay $100 for 6 licenses, where you can get it for $69 or $70 for 1 license, and that's per year. So I'm figuring those prices may be per year. Mac users are generally people doing high-level photo, publishing, and video work. That requires not just powerful CPUs, but high-speed bandwidth and storage as well. Apparently, AWS, Amazon Web Services, thinks it can deliver that now. And so Apple is going ahead with some cloud computing as well. Another benefit of desktop as a service is that it allows users to work from the device of their choosing. A user might choose to work from a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, as long as it has the necessary display resolution and remote desktop client software. The user's desktop environment is identical regardless of the type of device they are using. It's funny how the future works. In many ways, we're returning to the past when most of us used mainframe and mini computing, remote computing, and only a handful of us had PCs at home. And with that, what's your opinion on all of this? And so I'm going to stop the share and let's see if we can get some discussions going. Don't forget to unmute yourself. Please don't talk over somebody else so we can all hear and understand everybody. But someone would like to start the discussion?
Yeah, I like to have my computer at home. I'm not too thrilled about relying on the internet for access to all of my important information.
All right. Any other comments?
I'd like to keep it simple concept, so it remains to be seen.
Yeah, it'll be much like owning a Chromebook.
Except the Chromebook is online primarily to access apps or for where its data is, but the Chromebook itself doesn't have to be online. The operating system's on the Chromebook.
Well, and it's going to work similarly though with what it sounds like. You're going to have a machine that's not going to require a lot of memory and storage, but you can store things locally as well as in the cloud. The thing about it in the cloud is when you go to open up a document, it's there no matter what device you're on and where you're located.
Well,
which is like using
the problem I have with the concept is it requires a reliable high-speed internet connection, and that rules out an awful lot of people.
But that's improving as well. Ron, you had your hand up, and I know you wanted to, you had some comments earlier on that same idea. So go ahead, Ron.
Well, I wanted just to give everybody a bit of the background behind this. Many of you listen to Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. They're tech reporters, and they talk a lot on Microsoft. And, I was listening to him the other day, and Paul Thurrott confirmed that over the past 5 years, the number of people using Windows 10 has steadily declined each year. So the business model of a Windows 10 machine is of diminishing return. And there are many reasons for this. Europe is moving more towards Linux. A lot of people are running their businesses on mobile platforms rather than PCs. So there's a lot of reasons. So the concept of having Windows on a PC forever, like Microsoft said would happen, you'd have it isn't going to happen because it's a law of diminishing returns. So something is going to change. And whether we have advertising, I suspect, I always thought that I see right around the corner advertising on Windows. If you want the free version, you're going to get lots of advertising. So I think, there's got to be something. And the other problem is that Microsoft has these two brutal updates each year. These feature updates. 2004, the 2004 was just a bear. People hate it. It crashes computers. It's just awful. And so having it in the cloud would negate all those problems, and it would probably solve the business model as well. So, I think change is in the wind, and I think a lot of things are going to happen that are going to be different.
I think too that they've got to do something different. They Windows as a model is not. They don't charge for it unless you buy a new computer, then you get it. But if you have it, you just keep updating every year for free, and there's no charge to it. So the fact that so many people still use Windows, and the fact that their cloud is the moneymaker anymore for Microsoft and for Amazon. That's where Amazon, a lot of what Amazon makes money on is the AWS, their cloud services. And so this way, with AWS providing the service for the Macs and for the Apple products, and Microsoft using their Azure, it's already there. The biggest thing I see, one of the biggest problems, is the number one is those of us who are used to having our own machines now. Do we want to give that up? But the other thing is, of course, is bandwidth and the reliability of bandwidth in some areas.
And what's the latest on the two-tier internet system? Well, one for the ordinary flunkies like many of us, and one for a much higher speed, more reliable system for those that are willing and able to pay more. I haven't followed that lately, so maybe somebody can update me on that.
Ron?
Well, I could comment. Well, I would comment on one thing, is that you'll find that if you have internet provided by a cable system, a cable company, I would strongly encourage you to talk to them and renegotiate your plan. For example, I have a gigabit service on my cable. Now, I never thought for a minute, like a few years ago, I had 40, 50, 60 megabit download. This year, I upgraded it to about 300. And then about a month ago, they brought out this super special deal. And for $10 more, I now have a gigabyte. I got 1,000 megabyte download and 130 up. So the cable companies are all highly competitive, and also they're competing with the new fixed base 5G, which is going to be really the future. And I think that so all as I'm saying is, you may find it's not much money. It's not much money to upgrade to a gigabit plan. Cox is offering it. They're all offering a gigabit plan. So have a look at your contract that you have now, and you might be surprised how easy it is to do.
Yeah, I contacted my company. I have a FiOS from Frontier, and the FiOS is the fiber optics, and I pay for 150 up and 150 down. Oof. And I pretty much get that most of the time. So I talked to them with Ron, and I were in competition all the time, who gets what. And so I called them and said, what would it be for me to go to a gigabit service instead of 150 megabits? And they said, well, we're running a special on it. It was going to be $50 more a year, but I also had to pay it's different equipment, so I had to pay almost $100 to get new equipment as well. So it was going to be about $125. And I said, well, what about 500 gigabits, 500 megabits instead of the 150? And that was more expensive than the gigabit.
Right.
So that one, I definitely said no. And I said, I'm not going to pay $125 a month just for internet. I'm happy with 150 for me has been fine. So I cut the cord, so all of my TV is through the internet as well.
Going back to the original question about using the internet for Microsoft, Adobe Photoshop actually did that to all of us 2 years ago now. Used to be able to buy and have local to your computer Adobe Photoshop. Now it's all internet based. So as they only have to have one system out there that they keep control of, and they keep updating you, and you have to sign on at least every 6 months, and it updates your system. And when they first did it, probably about 50% of the people that use Photoshop canceled their subscription, just changed because there's a lot of other Linux-based Photoshop groups out there. And they took a hit, but now it's coming back because of the gigabit bandwidth and stuff. Because doing photos, manipulating them and everything, not local, is pretty tough 2 years ago. It's easier now, but they took that big leap, and now it sounds like Microsoft's looking to do it also. But I like my stuff local.
My concern is that I do lots of video and video creation and editing, and to try to do that through the cloud, no. And one of the reasons I've gotten this computer with the oomph that it has is because on the other machines, that was already a hassle. I don't even want to think about online. And my speed here, 39 megabits up, that's what my speed is. And I already pay almost $100 a month. So,
I think the difference is, though, you're tech savvy, so you know your machine, you know how to upgrade it. I think if you're a business, this might be a really good deal. You don't have to worry about doing updates because they're all going to be done out in the cloud or wherever. It's not going to be something that you have to do. It seems to me you could focus on whatever your business is rather than focusing on, trying to make sure your computer, all the updates are in place. In fact, that's one of the most irritating things about computers. People that go to do presentations through the internet, or if they're connected to the internet, sometimes the computer is trying to update at the same time they're trying to give their presentation. And I know there's a way to control that, but I have seen it interfere with what they're doing. So it seems to me it depends on, which layer you're in. If you're a business person, you don't want to have to worry about tech stuff. You just want it to work the way it's supposed to. If you're you love to mess with the tech like most of this group, then yeah, you might want to keep it local.
for a business, also you have to realize that cost is just part of doing business. It's passed on to the consumer, and it's written off as an expense. The individual has to bear that cost.
Exactly. Yeah.
Dick?
Business, the company I work for, we sell environmental monitoring software. So if you collect a soil or water sample, you store it in our software, you can report it back out. And we have a number of clients that we've moved to Windows Virtual Desktop or other types of virtual machines. And typically these are running anywhere from $60 to $70 a month to $100 plus a month for a server, might be more than that. So I think the cost that Hewie was mentioning is more than likely monthly rather than annual. I can't imagine them being able to do it for that kind of price annually, and it would be cost prohibitive if that's what it is.
Dick Vogel?
I would think that this would give you a real benefit as far as watching for malware, because I would think that the central location would eliminate that problem.
Ken?
A major shutdown of one of the internet suppliers, and that meant if it was all online, you wouldn't be able to do anything. You wouldn't be able to do Word documents and that sort of thing until it all came back up a day later.
Good point. Ken, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just a quickie. I use the Photoshop on internet. You're not doing any work on the internet. Photoshop's all on your machine. So I do get the benefit of my high-speed machine. So what Norbert brought up was the fact that trying to render a video through the internet, even if you have gigabyte speed, that's just impossible. I mean, that's like we used to do it, where you started it at night and you went to bed, and it would be done the next day, maybe. I mean, it just couldn't be done. Now I can actually render them faster than it plays, which, I mean, that for me was a breakthrough. I could render a 15-minute video in about 6 minutes. That's why one of the reasons you buy the speed. But I get the same speed with Photoshop. What they do with mine, with my yearly rent, is they actually they monitor what I have, and then there's a load in, and it looks at all of the things that I bought from Photoshop, and it upgrades them all at once. And so it's a good deal for me. I would rather do that than actually buy those discs every year. They were expensive, and but for business, I can see doing business over the internet. Absolutely. I don't know about security. I would worry about something like that, but I work for a military organization, so they would never have done it in the first place. So, but I see the point, and for me personally, not a chance I'd ever do that. Not, I got to have a machine here. I want the stuff on it that I want on it, and I want to be able to control how it works, like most of us geeks.
Ron Braun?
So, and I agree with what Ken said. However, I want everybody to think about something, and I have a fast machine with 64 gigabytes of RAM, and I do most of my stuff as video, as Hewie is as well. So, Ken, I have the same concerns you do, but I want everyone to think about something. When you all record something in the cloud with Zoom, Zoom renders that in the cloud, and then they send you a link and you download the MP4 file. So remember that it is true in the old days, you know, trying to render something in the cloud was just really not, it was really bad. But Zoom does it every day to hundreds of millions of files all at once. So the technology, I think, has really changed a lot. So remember, when you, like this recording now that you're recording to the cloud, is as soon as you finish the meeting, it's going to be rendered in the cloud, and Hewie will get an email saying your MP4 file is ready. So it is happening now, and it's very common. So I think the technology has certainly changed.
Clint?
Yes, I think one thing that's missing here in the equation is you're still going to have something locally, be it a terminal or whatever, and those are not cheap. And I'm not going to do it. I'm going to keep everything local. I don't want my files owned in by anybody. I stay away from Google for the same reason. Because I want all my files and I want that locally, and I don't want it to be hacked. I mean, you put stuff up on the cloud and your vulnerabilities go up to people hacking into your system. I mean, there's a lot of downsides to this approach of having a virtual desktop. Number one, you've got to have that internet access. That's another cost, which you've already talked about. Plus, you got to have your local system to do the work on. So why do it? That's my point.
A lot of us have Chromebooks, and we do something similar. We store most of it out in the cloud, some of it locally, and it doesn't matter which machine we open up. We open up on our account and on a Chromebook, and we're good to go and start working. And that's one of the advantages of it. And also, we're also looking at the beginnings of this. And as a lot of you have talked about, the technology keeps improving, and the speeds and the ability to do what they're talking about doing is every day is getting better. And I think going along with what Clint said also about the ability to be hacked, I think you're more likely to be hacked on your own machine than you would be in the cloud.
Correct.
And Bob, you're more involved in the security end of that. Would you like to comment on that?
I can tell you that the big companies, not the little ones, but the big companies spend a fortune on making sure that their stuff does not get hacked, and their stuff is your stuff. If you were to spend the same kind of money that they spend for security, you'd be broke.
But you'd be secure. Ron, more?
So let's take three, and I agree with the previous individual. I mean, I like to have my stuff locally, and I'm worried about security, and Bob helps with that. But let's look at the three most important parts of your life. Let's look at your bank that holds all your money. Your money is in the cloud, right? The second thing is your healthcare. All your medical data is now stored in the cloud. And third, your government, your pension, your IRS, all the stuff you have is all stored in the cloud, right? So those are the three most secure, most important things in your life, and they're all in the cloud. So does it really matter if I'm worried about having a Word document on my local computer? Because those are the important things that to me anyway, are the most important things in my life. So those are all stored in the cloud.
Health was not one of the things you should have mentioned to go along with security. We've had more health corporations hacked than you can shake a stick at. And it's happening right now. So,
but it is the way. But it won't go back. I mean, they'll just have to get better at protecting the data.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. They are.
You know, and they got to get better at that. But we're not. It will always be in the cloud. So your money, your health, and the government is all in the cloud, right? So, I mean, that's.
Ken?
It's just that one more thing on that. I don't have any problem with the cloud. I'm perfectly happy with everything in the cloud. I don't mind doing business with them, storing things in the cloud. My problem is, how do I talk to it? And that's the thing that Norbert has a problem with, and it's on too, is a gigabyte just doesn't do it. I can't do things at a gigabyte. I have to go a lot faster than that. We're talking about a gigabit is what you're talking about. There's 11 or 12 bits in a byte, okay? So, and then each one of those is a packet. And the packets all have to travel, and they travel at different speeds and different rates. I know that's all technical crap, but the point is, you just can't talk to the cloud fast enough to be able to do business at anything with high speed. Other than that, I don't have any problem with the cloud. I think it's very safe, and I store all my important things, and anybody can pretty much have anything they want out of my computer, but I just don't want to be back to the point where I can't talk to my own computer. And the stuff that I have on the cloud is stuff that I don't want to lose. But it's just how fast can I talk to the cloud? That's the problem.
Say, Ken, can you do something to turn up your sound level? It's really hard to hear you speak compared to everybody else.
Actually, you can do that in the Zoom, Ken, but go to the up arrow next to your microphone and you can adjust your microphone level within Zoom. You don't have to do it on your computer. All right, any other comments? This article on phone monitoring, I came across an article, and I'm not sure where it came in. I think it might have been an email, and it might have been on one of my RSS feeds. But it was a review of some software on phone monitoring, and I thought it was interesting. And then as I got into it a little bit more, you'll see from what I talk about where I'm going with this. So we're going to talk about phone monitoring. And again, I'm Hewie Poplock. There are a lot of parents out there who look for a phone monitoring solution to keep a tab on their kids. Teen Safe is one of those. Therefore, this brings us to the question, is it safe to use Teen Safe? Is Teen Safe a reliable parental monitoring application? After all, the internet has a lot of apps that you should definitely avoid. It won't hurt you to read more about Teen Safe before using it for real. Now, some of this information came from their website and some came from the review of it, and I don't know the person doing the review. And I'm only using Teen Safe, and I'm not putting their website up here. I'm not advertising for them. I'm not advocating for them. I'm only showing them as one of the types of software out there doing this. And the fact that this was the one that sparked my interest in the topic. Teen Safe is a phone monitoring application that lets parents keep an eye on their children. It can monitor the data of any iPhone or Android phone remotely. Parents all over the world use Teen Safe to ensure that their kids are safe. There are a lot of harmful things going on the internet and in the real world. With the help of Teen Safe, or any of these other programs, parents can protect their children from most, if not all, of those things. Some of the basic characteristics that make up Teen Safe, such a popular choice among parents, include you don't have to install any app on your device to monitor your child's phone. You can use the features of Teen Safe remotely from any web browser, such as Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and so on, from any desktop, smartphone, or tablet. TeenSafe does not ask you to root or jailbreak your child's phone in order to monitor its data. The service uses next-gen technology to make sure that all of its features work without any hard-to-meet requirements. When you're using TeenSafe to monitor your child will not know that you're monitoring them. This is because TeenSafe is designed to be completely hidden at all times, regardless of which phone your kid uses. TeenSafe is designed to be used by everyone and anyone with ease. Anyone and everyone can use TeenSafe without requiring any advanced technical knowledge or skill. This makes TeenSafe more user-friendly than any other parental monitoring application you will see. The working process of TeenSafe varies on whether your child is using an Android phone or an iPhone. So let's walk through the working process for each of these, and I really don't go into detail, and I'm not going to. But if your child is using an iPhone, you'll be able to monitor it even without the need to touch it. All iOS devices come with the iCloud feature integrated on the device right out of the box. Due to this feature, all of the data on the iPhone gets uploaded to the iCloud server and automatically at all times. TeenSafe utilizes this iCloud backup to get all the data of your child's iPhone to your screen. Therefore, you're able to monitor it without touching it. If you want to monitor your child's Android phone or tablet, you'll need to install the monitoring app on the device itself. This holds true regardless of whether you use TeenSafe or any other monitoring application. However, if you use TeenSafe, things become a little easier for you. TeenSafe's Android solution is designed to be hidden even when installed on your child's phone. The app size is less than 3 megabytes, so it only takes a few seconds to install it. Once it's installed, you can even choose to hide the app icon. And if you ever feel the need to uninstall TeenSafe from their phone, you can do it with a single click from your TeenSafe dashboard remotely. Therefore, your child never finds out that you're monitoring their Android device. When it comes to parental monitoring, there is hardly anything that TeenSafe cannot do. It has over 35 features to make the life of parents a lot easier. Here are some of the most widely used parental monitoring features of TeenSafe. The Browser History Monitor. The Browser History Monitor shows all of the websites that your child has visited on their phone. You can even block access to any inappropriate website that they use. The Application Monitor. Application Monitor provides details about each and every app installed on their phone. You can also know how much your child uses each app. If you want, there is also the option to block access to any of those apps. So here are some of the other features. They have message monitoring, location tracking, monitor saved contacts. You can monitor their saved contacts. The WhatsApp spy, you can see who they're contacting and what's going on with WhatsApp. Phone call tracking, call spy, or mobile call tracker. Geofence alert. So if you give them a certain area that they must stay within and they go past it, you'll get an alert on it. Browser history tracker, and the stealth mode mean they can't see it and they don't know that it's there. Now, from the TeenSafe website, it says cell phone tracker for parents and employers. When I saw that, that's what really keyed me in to talking about this. Employers give employees phones and they can do virtually the same thing. Now, I know a lot of you are past the point of having little kids, but your kids have little kids. And in some cases, their kids have little kids. So it's in your family and so on. You know, how do you feel about those things for your kids, your grandkids, and what about employers and employees and their relationship using some kind of software like this as well? Now, there are other similar programs. There's several of them listed here, and it's at tomsguide.com is where I got this, and it compares a lot of these. This Teen Safe is not included with the comparison, but there's a lot of programs similar to this out there as well. Was the reason I wanted to add this to my intro to the topic. So on that, what's your opinion about, and I didn't mention government with all of this. So there's certainly some things. Let's start with Bob G.
I currently spy on my wife.
Okay.
The product that I use and that I've been using since beta from Avast is called Omni, and it has the ability in it to monitor your kids. In my case, I don't have kids, but my wife always knows where I am as long as I have my phone with me, and I always know where she is. Now, I didn't start any of those other things where I track what calls she makes and so on and so forth. That's not for us, that's not what we want. We want it as a safety thing. So if she has a problem, I know right off any second exactly where she's located. But yes, the technology is there. And if you're using Avast Omni, and if you have kids or grandkids or anybody you need to monitor, geofencing, making sure that they get to places on time, making sure that they arrive on time and safely, all those things are part of it.
Other comments, questions?
Yeah, it sounds like there's an awful opportunity for abuse of monitoring other adults.
Yep.
Bob isn't abusing his monitoring of his wife, but he could if he were so inclined.
Absolutely. And but this also goes to GPS units where I had read where couples who were having difficulty or one didn't trust the other, that they would have put some kind of a GPS unit in or around their car and be able to see where their spouse is going. So yeah, these kind of things can be quite dangerous, but it also, to protect your kids, where do we draw the line? Comments, others? Steve.
I don't mind employers doing it as long as the employees are told, because after all, if the employer is paying for the phone and paying for the contact, then and as long as they let the employees know, I don't have a problem. I have more of a problem doing it with your teen if you don't tell them that they're being monitored. It's a violation of trust. And I think somehow, some way they will find out about it, especially if you get on them about some site they've visited or some telephone person they've talked with. And then they're not going to trust the parent. So yeah, I really don't, and I'm sure you've checked this out, but that particular app has been hacked. And the information, from what I'm reading here, if you go to ZNet, you find out that it has been hacked, it's been breached. And so I'm not so sure that it's even safe in that respect. But it could be a useful tool if used properly. Doing it so surreptitiously bothers me.
Of course, using the internet could be very useful if it's used properly, but when these scammers are out there, we're finding out that the opportunities increase with the technology as well. So
yeah, I was never a big fan of Ronald Reagan, but I did like his statement, trust but verify. I'm okay with telling a child, look, I trust you, but yes, you are going to be monitored until our trust is totally established. But let them know.
Anyone else with comments? I thought this one would have as many comments as the other one, but I guess not.
And by the way, I was a children's social worker for quite a number of years. So I worked with children at the parental home there on Michigan Avenue, Great Oaks Village, and I dealt with foster families. So like I said, it could be a useful tool. If
Would
you
it be would it be useful when the phone is lost? And I know you can track it on iCloud.com. You can go and do lost my phone thing. But when somebody just picks it up and uses it to go to a website or uses it, you know, they're on the internet for whatever reason, would it show all that they did?
I would imagine so if you had it on there.
Yeah, so if you have that app on, I mean, other than tracking your child, if that phone gets into somebody else's hand and they don't know that you actually have that app on, it might be one way of tracking it and finding out who has it. I'm not advocating. I think, like everybody said, you need to trust your child and talk to them about sites they want to visit or places they want to go, etc. But
good points. Thank you. And you're one that lost your phone, wasn't it?
yes, I did. I did.
Okay.
I got it back too, thank goodness.
Okay. I think that's the end of that discussion. It was still a good discussion, and thank you everybody for participating. So let's, since we've got a little bit of time left, let's look at some of the other topics I had on my list for today. Let me make it larger here for you. And well, I'm going to go one less than that. And now I've got 2021's already ready to go. So we're ready to go for the new year. But these are the topics that I had set up for today. We've covered actually the first several down here. And 9 things to do before using a new computer. And I'm going to step on somebody's toes here with at least one of them. And let's use the, and let's see, can I make this bigger? I can, good. I thought this was a good article. If you're, some of you are talking about getting new computers, and with the holidays coming and so on, some of you will. So what are some of the things that you should do when you get a new computer? One of the first things you should do is review the update settings. Microsoft, especially if it's a PC, Microsoft releases periodic updates to Windows 10. Quality updates consist of bugs and security fixes. So what you need to do is to do the update and security and get all the updates. One of the first things you should do with that new computer. And then you also want to change the active hours. To prevent Windows from automatically restarting your PC, view the update history, categorizes updates installed on your system. And so you want to also go in and change your update options and change the hours. The device manager, make sure that if there are any additional updates, you can manage it through a view optional updates. And the second one would be to check the power plan, especially if you have a laptop, because what you want to do is have it power down when you need it to, so it saves the battery, but not power down too quickly so that you lose data when you have to turn away for a few minutes. So what you're going to have to work this on your own. Usually by default on the battery, the power turns off after 15 minutes. When it's plugged in, it might be 25 minutes. Usually when it's plugged in, I'll turn mine to never. Don't shut it off, because sometimes I want to walk away and come back and have it right where I want it to be. But if you're in a work situation, you might want it to power down after so many minutes, or either go to sleep or to lock itself so no one else can get in and use your computer. And same thing with the screen, with the sleep. And so you want to check those. And so you can set up a power setting for different purposes. If you're doing an update, or you're doing some software, running some software that requires a lot of time, but not a lot of input, your system can shut down in the middle of all of that. So you may have to go in and change the power setting for that particular time or that particular event. And you can also, if you do that on a regular basis, you can create your own power setting and then call it updates or data recovery or something. And then so it stays on and doesn't turn off automatically because you haven't moved the mouse or you haven't clicked enter. And so there's some, you can create your own power plan or you can use one that's already there. The battery health and calibration. We're often less informed and least excited about the laptop battery health. But when you buy a new laptop, it's necessary to monitor the battery's health right from the beginning. Over time, the capacity of any battery diminishes. So you might want to take look at some calibration software and some software to let you know how much that battery has worn down for the particular time period for recharging, but also on the life of the battery. Rename your PC. The default Windows setup creates a nonsense name for the PC. And I didn't do this, and I'm sorry now that I didn't. While it may seem small, you'll see your PC's name in OneDrive, Microsoft services on the web, and elsewhere. And it may be something that you hadn't planned on calling it. You might want to give it a different name. And so you can rename the PC from your from the system in the settings. Create a recovery drive. When your PC runs into problems and won't start, a USB recovery drive can help you troubleshoot and fix those problems. The recovery drive boots your PC into Windows recovery environment, which consists of many helpful utilities. And so you want to create a recovery drive, and usually you'll do that to a USB drive, but you have to make sure that you know how to get your computer to boot from a USB drive if that should happen. You also want to go in and uninstall any bloatware and turn off annoyances. Computer manufacturers get extra money by putting software on your computer that you may or may not want to have on there. And if you don't want it, uninstall it. And the sooner you uninstall it on a new computer, the better off you are. And so it's called bloatware because a lot of times it's programs you'll never use and you don't want to use. If you're not sure of it, don't uninstall it. Do some research before you do. Or just kind of use the system and find out whether maybe there's something that you do want to use. It's a new computer, a new operating system. You may not know what it does, and it may be something later on that you may want. So, but be aware that it's there and that you can go in and uninstall programs. Lock screen ads and then so on it talks about here, and some pop-ups, and there's different notifications and so on that you might want to be able to turn off and set. Create a standard user account with a password. Most of us don't do that. You have one account, and that's the administrator and the main account for your computer. But you really should create a standard user account with a password so certain things can't be installed or can't be operated without the express consent of the owner of the computer, which is you, of course, but you're not in the account to do that. And so it kind of limits what some of the bad guys can do by doing that. It also protects you if something should happen to that account. You can go back in through the administrator's account. And then create a system restore point. Microsoft, in its infinite, in their wisdom, sometimes it doesn't get turned on automatically. And you really should have a system restore point. And this part of the article does tell you, go to settings, system, and about, and then system protection. And you want to make sure that you have the restore point for your drive C is turned on. And then setting up Windows security, you also want to make sure you do that. You can run the Microsoft Defender with most antivirus programs. But if nothing else, make sure you have the Windows Defender or the Windows Security the Microsoft security turned on so that you do have some protection. And then ransomware protection is now part of Windows, and make sure that is turned on. Again, if you're using something like Avast or Malwarebytes or some of the others that are out there, you might want to look at the paid versions to give you extra protection as well. You also want to look at the app and browser control. These are all under security, device security. And then set up a scheduled backup routine. Make sure that you have some kind of routine for backing up your data, and then for your programs as well, as if you're doing an image backup, for instance. But also, if you're just doing image backups, make sure you're somewhere also doing backups of important data in a different place. And a nightly backup of your data is really good. I'm using iDrive. Some of you use some of the other services that are out there. And it's good to have that where it checks to see what you've already have backed up. And it says, okay, this is new, so I'm going to add this to it. So it doesn't take nearly as long, and it keeps your backup up to date on a daily basis, or at least every couple of days. This is where I'm stepping on somebody's toes. Sorry about that. But on the 11th item on here is use 9-Night to install multiple apps. And this is where you can find all kinds of software programs that are free, shareware and freeware programs. And you go to 9-Night, you specify which ones you want. It creates a package, an install package. You download the whole thing and it installs all of them at one time. And you can always go back and add more to it if you want. But if you go to 9-Night, you'll see how many programs that you may be familiar with that you probably want to have on your computer. And before I go to the next item, any comments on any of those? Let me stop the share. Any comments?
With 9-Night, those programs that you download directly from 9-Night, you can run the program again at any time, and it will check to see whether there are updates to those programs you installed through the use of 9-Night.
Right, and the fact is also you don't get bloatware with it.
Correct.
You don't get a lot of garbage along with it, as opposed to if you go to some of the websites, even the websites of the authors of some of those softwares, they get paid extra money to add something to their install process.
One other comment, Windows Defender or Microsoft Security, what it's called now, the second you install a third-party antivirus, it shuts itself down. So that's the great part about it. As soon as you get rid of that third party, it turns itself back on. So you're never left without any protection on your computer. But you can't have two resident antiviruses running at the same time. And Microsoft Security is not one that you need to uninstall. It just turns itself off when you install a third-party antivirus.
Thank you for that. I think I said that wrong. Yes.
Since you were talking about things to do with a new computer, I'm sure those of us that have installed Windows 10 from scratch have gone through the process of setting up the privacy settings that Microsoft Windows has. But if you buy a new computer and turn it on, in the initial setup, you may or may not see that screen. And there's about 10 or 12 different items in 2 columns that Microsoft gives you the option of turning off, and says that they're going to monitor your computer unless you deselect these items.
That's correct. They're turned on by default. If you don't want the stuff shared, you would have to go in and manually turn it off.
You also need to go to the Microsoft ID to Microsoft and turn off those particular ones also, and you can see the data they have collected on you and have it erased. It's just that next extra step that 90% of the people do not do with Microsoft. you can get rid of the stuff they've already collected on you through the years.
You can also do that with Google. Problem is, half that stuff's already been passed along to other people, and that you can't get rid of.
Robert,
Same
say
with
again how
Facebook.
you do that.
If you go into the Microsoft.com and log into your Microsoft ID and go in through the various steps to their security, you can actually go in and see what data they have collected for you. There's like 2 or 3 pages, and each one keeps expanding out, and you can uncheck, you can erase. I did it probably 2 years ago when I got my Nook, and it was an amazing what they have on you just from running your Microsoft system.
You can also do that in Facebook, and Facebook has 3 times the amount that Microsoft has.
I'm not a Facebook user, so that they don't have me.
You'd be surprised. They might.
Any other comments?
So I guess the other comment maybe would be which primary browser you're going to use. You know, obviously when you load Windows, they're going to want you to use Microsoft Edge. Many of us, including myself, I'm kind of addicted to Google Chrome. So they do have different features. Some are better at one thing than others. Some people like Firefox for some reason. But so which browser?
Yeah, that's a good point. But also the new Microsoft Edge, of course, is based on Chrome. So a lot of what you do in Chrome works in Microsoft Edge as well now. I did see somewheres that the IE, the Internet Explorer 11, is going away, and not to use it. Make sure that it's not even on your computer, but what you want to make sure is don't use it, and there's not going to be any updates. And there are some websites that or something, I read an article that somehow that you can't use IE on certain sites, I believe it is.
Hewie?
Yes.
Yes, there are several websites that will, if you're using Internet Explorer, they will not connect with you. That's when the websites first try to connect, they handshake and identify what browser you're using so that the site can send you the information correctly. And if you come back with an IE browser, they'll refuse to connect.
So those of you who are having trouble getting to some websites and you're still using IE, time to change. Forrest.
In Edge, there is a IE 11 compatibility mode. So that's something to keep in mind.
Okay, Forrest, you're muted. You're muted, Forrest.
Sorry about that. There are a lot of sites that won't connect with AOL also.
AOL?
Yes.
And that's a good thing.
Okay.
Huey?
Yes.
One other thing. I'm not sure on the new Edge if I particularly use Chrome. And the reason I use Chrome is because of it has a very good sandbox feature, which I'm not sure that the Edge uses. And for those of you who don't know the feature, if whatever you're doing in one tab stays in that tab, unless you have made modifications to Chrome that allows it to go outside. But whatever's in that tab stays in that tab. So you can't, a drive-by may not work. There's a lot of things that won't work in Chrome that will work in other browsers like Firefox.
Okay, any other comments?
I use DuckDuckGo as a add-on to my Chrome. Seems to get rid of an awful lot of ads, and it's kind of a anonymous, I guess, would be the word for using DuckDuckGo extension. But when I put that on, it seems to erase all the flowing ads that seem to come into the site. But I use Chrome, and then you do the DuckDuckGo extension, but that's just what I do.
Microsoft Edge and Chrome, Google Chrome have both fully implemented sandboxing technology. So it doesn't matter whether you're using Chrome or Edge.
Okay, let's go back to my list.
I guess finally, too, actually, there's nothing wrong with having more than one type of browser on your computer and then using it as whichever you see fit.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that I do. I have several. I have some that automatically sign into websites. There are some times that I want to go to a website and not be signed in to see how they're handling something or how something else is done. And so I'll use one of the other browsers to do that. Let's see here. 200 Worst Passwords, 2020 edition. And talking about the garbage on the screen and so on, you'll see there's ads here along the side with this article and so on. And what I have is something that's called Print Friendly and PDF. And when I open it, it gets rid of all of that junk. I can make it bigger. I can save the page as a PDF. I can print it without all the garbage. And there is the same article. And that was it. So the number one.
What is that product?
It's called Print Friendly. And if you'll go to the Tech for Seniors, Dewey Cluse has done a couple of articles on it. If you go to our our YouTube channel, and you can find those articles. And if you can't, let me know and I'll find it for you and let you know. It's called Print Friendly. So anyway, so the number one password used by over 2 million users is 123456. Gosh, I hope none of you do that. And number two is 12345678 because you use more numbers, it's more secure. It takes less than a second for either one of those to be cracked. Picture one is a new, and it's number 3, and it takes 3 hours to crack that one. The word password takes less than a second, and you'll see, and somewhere there's a continuation, and I may have to go back to the article itself to find where all of them are, but it's amazing. Some of the let's go ahead and do that. I think there was a connecting point. Yeah, right here at NordPass. This is where the original article came from. And here's somebody going across the top of their keyboard.
Can you make that bigger?
Sure.
The sad story on this, Hewie, is that you go back 10 years and you'll find virtually the same most used passwords.
Yeah, it is. It's unbelievable. And I do a lot of working with people in my neighborhood and friends and so on, helping them with their computer. And all of them use the same password for everything, or the same password with a different number or a different letter, or a capital here and an uncapital here. And all that stuff doesn't make any difference. Once they have your password, the computers that they use to crack these things, it figures that out very quickly. So just because you're using a name of your pet that died doesn't mean that they can't crack that. They don't know the name of your pet unless they ask you and you tell them. But in some cases, if you saw the video on that, people do that very easily as well. But what you have to do is just be careful. Have different passwords, because if your password, let's say for your email, is 12345 and that email gets hacked and people pass that on, all these bad guys out there that say, well, here's his email address and here's the password for that. He's probably using that same that password for other things. Let's try different email addresses. Let's try websites. And they're doing that, and they're getting into a lot of things that they shouldn't be able to get into because people are using the same password in multiple places. So please be careful of that. But you can see some of these passwords you would think that would be quite capable of being difficult to crack, but some of these are less than a second. And how many people are using these? 1111111. 30,000 people use that. It takes them less than a second to crack it. And it's been exposed almost 500,000 times. So this is an interesting list. And if it's anything close to anything you're using, please change your passwords. And if you're using something that is a word, you might want to change it. And you might want to add some letters and numbers and punctuation marks to it as well. I know it's difficult to remember them. The first thing is to have a password manager. If you don't have one of those, at least have some kind of a notebook where you write these things down so you don't lose it. But because I know, and then keep it up to date. When you change one, change it in that notebook. Don't add it on. So you want to have it reasonably organized. And it's very important. And in some cases, it's detrimental if you don't have a password to get on your computer, your Microsoft account, you don't know it, and all of a sudden your computer crashes and you have to get into your system and it asks for your password where it didn't before. You need to know what that password is.
Hewie, what's the best password manager? Which one do you use?
Well, the best one and the one I use probably are quite different. So I'm using two just to be safe. I've been using one called eWallet from a company called, I got to remember the name of the software now. Anyway, it's called eWallet. I've been using it since I had a Palm Pilot. I have well over 1,300 cards with passwords on it. Not only passwords, but I keep all of my keys to software in that. I keep other information. When I buy new software, I keep when I bought it, the dates, the keys, and so on. I keep it all in that password manager. But I got worried not too long ago that, if something happens to that software and that company goes away, I'm up that well-known tributary without a paddle. So I decided to also install LastPass, and I was able to export everything from my eWallet to a file format that could bring it into LastPass. It doesn't bring everything in, but it brought a lot of it in. And so now every time I add something to eWallet, I add it to LastPass or vice versa. And so I'm maintaining two different ones, which is really overkill, but.
Do you store the manager in the cloud or?
Yes, I do. I do because I have an iPad, an iPhone, an Android phone. I have a Chromebook. I have my Windows machine, and I have, if I didn't mention it, I have an Android phone as well. And so I have all these devices that require passwords when I go somewhere, when I go to a site, and I need to be able to get to it and get that password if I need it. So I want it to be synced and for me to be able to go to the cloud and get the password. Almost all of them, I know at least LastPass and eWallet have 256K encryption. So I am not concerned. And they're both, everything I've read about them are both quite secure.
Thanks for that. That's very helpful.
Dick?
I have a couple suggestions. One is if you generate your passwords using some kind of a secure password generator, and there is one called that, secure password, or it's called passwordgenerator.net. And it will generate a password with all the numbers and special characters that most of the secure ones require. And it will make it any length you specify. So that's a huge help. Second thing that I suggest is when you generate or when you're tracking your passwords, keep track of when you changed it, because some of them are recommended to be changed every 6 months, like your financial institutions, they would like you to change it every 6 months. And that way you can keep track of when you did change it.
Your password manager can do all of that stuff for you automatically.
Yeah, and also the password manager, what I do with my password manager, I keep track of all of the old ones in case something happens. And for whatever reason, it's happened to me a couple of times. I've gone in with my current password and it didn't work, and I used an old one and it worked. So they had apparently some software glitch or some kind of they had to go back to some kind of a backup, and it picked up the old password instead of the new one. So I like to keep track of the old ones in my password manager as well.
Just for an update, for family of your data, you want to pass on that password manager's logon. You may want to keep that in a secure place and tell them where it is. When my parents both passed within 65 days, luckily Dad had the password to get into all his stuff on the bottom of his desk pad. I was able to turn it over and get it. If not, I would have been locked out of all their stuff to turn off certain accounts that were auto billing and everything like that. So just for your family members that are left, please have somebody that you trust, whether it's a lawyer. Well, I don't trust them, but that can get your e-data and turn things off, close things down, because Apple and all them won't talk to them without that.
Question.
Good idea. Excellent.
Hewie?
Yes.
Probably more than I need or than anybody here is interested in. Okay, I got a password and you can solve it in 1 second. What do you do with it? How do you solve it? You try, if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, and I use that. And what are you going to do? Start at 1 and then 2 and then 1, 2 and then 1, 2 and then 1, 2, 3. If you do that, you
use a program.
You try to log in that many times in any of my accounts, and they'll shut you off.
They have Bob can probably address that, but the bad guys have software that does that millions of times a second.
Yep.
I do understand. I do understand that. I can bump websites literally as fast as my account, my internet speed. I can bump them that fast. You bump them that fast, and they'll shut off. They'll just shut you down. I've gone to a website that I use rarely, and I've shut myself off. I think I tried 4 times on Hotmail one time, and it said, that's too many times. We're shutting your account off. Okay, and we now have to communicate with them.
John Kennedy, go ahead.
It's my understanding.
We lost you, John.
Yeah, we lost you. All right, Bob G, while he's trying to get back on.
Some sites have restrictions on how many times you can try a password, and then they lock you down for a certain amount of time before you can try it again. Many places don't have that restriction.
Is that what the bad guys do? They do just keep trying?
Yeah, they use a program and it's running in the background. They're not involved. It's just all done automatically. And some of them have some really sophisticated software and powerful machines that are doing these things. But they're doing it all on their own. It's like robocalls. Nobody makes them. They're all done by machine. and they just try all numbers possible, and eventually they'll get a live one. And that's if it happens with passwords also.
And maybe if they don't get into one email or one website they're trying to crack, they'll just move on to somebody else. And since these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are being hit, I mean, you know, so many people use them, they'll hit so many people just on that.
That's correct.
Yep.
Well, I can, you know, it's a fairly easy job to program that as a simple iteration to try start at 1 and then start at 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, and then 1, and so on and so on and so on. And I can do it multiple times. I can do it at multiple websites, at multiple things. That's a fairly easy thing to do. Detecting when you hit, that's a fairly easy thing to do. But as it says, I guess that's the biggest thing is you don't have a computer involved, there's no people involved, but it does take lots of time and you have to be dedicated. You have to, I guess, if you want to get in somebody's website, you have to want to do something. I'm not sure what anybody would want to get into any of my websites that won't lock you out. All of my financial stuff will lock you out, I think, after 3. You try 3 times and pow, that's it. You don't get in until you prove who you are. And that's usually something to your cell phone.
But the people who are using the same password on multiple websites, they're using that same one for their banking as they are to get on, say, Facebook. And if somebody breaks into Facebook with it, now they've got your password. Then they try your bank accounts, and they try all of these other accounts that you may have using the same email address. And so
that just happened to a very, very good friend of mine who I thought was smarter than to talk to Microsoft on the telephone. So those of you who are knowledgeable know exactly what these hackers, crackers, scammers do, but they did it to him. And he was on the phone with this guy for 15 minutes before a light bulb went off in his head and he said, you know, I think I remember Mike telling me don't talk to these guys from Microsoft. And by that time they were in his Gmail. They were not very smart, but they did get in there and they forwarded all his Gmail to a forwarding address, which was one of the hackers' additional email addresses, but didn't change his password for some reason. If they had changed his password, he never would have been able to get back into that account. We were able to get in that account, delete that. And then I said, now, is that the same password as to your banking account? Yeah. Okay. Is that the same password to Facebook? Yeah. What do you use for Social Security? That one. What do you use for the DFAS, Defense Payment System? He says, well, they make me change that all the time. That really bothers me. But it turned out that between he and his wife, there were probably over 100 sites, if not more, that all had the same password. And of course they had it. So human intel, or what was it? Human vulnerability, what we used to call it. I mean, it's just don't talk to Microsoft on the telephone. Don't talk to automobile warranty companies on the telephone. Don't talk to anybody that calls you on the telephone. Call them back at the corporate number that you look up or have on the back of your Visa card or whatever.
Well, still I'm not satisfied. I gotta, I guess, look deeper. I can see how you can solve the thing by just putting a computer on the business and multiple computers and multiple sites, or at least one computer on multiple sites. I don't see how you solve it in 1 second. That doesn't sound possible. You got to hit the site. It's got to respond. Even if you have, 6 gigabyte connections, you still got to hit the site. It has to respond. Then you have to respond.
So Ken, are you saying then go ahead and use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 because you just don't think anybody would ever get into one of your accounts that way?
I didn't say that. I asked how they saw they did it. I'm curious.
Oh.
I'm the technician here.
John Kennedy's back and he wanted to speak earlier. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, Zoom jumped me from a different one. It was my understanding from other workshops I've listened to that the hackers, we're used to going in the front way, go to a website, try to put in a password, but that hackers can go in through the back door through, server that doesn't have that restriction of how many times you can try. So with their computers that can generate numbers so fast without the limit of how many times you get a failed one, they can get in because they don't have that limit because they're not going through that web page that we usually go through.
Well, I'm still being overly technical, I guess, here. It's the ability to get that response to solve something, a 6-digit number, 18-digit number, and solve it within 1 or 2 seconds. Maybe. I know you can go into the back door, but you don't worry about passwords going into the back door. When I first retired, I'm an ex-computer programmer, and I got involved with looking at how back doors work. And there's some places where you can get a lot of good information doing that. And I found out that it's not something you want to do, so I stopped. But I don't need a password to go through the back door. That's not how you do that. We're talking about solving a password and going through the front door, I think.
No.
But still,
And the other thing too is the more digits you have, the longer it takes. So I think that's where your other solution is, that longer, more complicated.
That's a question for our tech meeting, Hewie.
Gentlemen, I've got a wild dialer here that will handle a 10-digit password, numbered password in a little over a second. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that kind of combination, it's just an invitation to get hacked.
Go to YouTube TV and type in what is a brute force attack. They'll tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah, sure will.
And say this has been the Central Florida Computer Society WinSIG for Sunday, December 13th, 2020. I'm Hewie Poplock, and thanks for joining us today.